All right, welcome to lesson 5F. We're going to be talking about now literal equations. So we just finished solving all these quadratics. So now let's kind of talk about formulas or equations that have a lot of different letters in it or multiple numbers in it that you might see in math classes or science classes that you have to manipulate to solve for a certain variable. So what I really like about these is that they're honestly easier than solving equations because you don't have to really do much arithmetic. You just need to know your steps for solving. So in this case here, we're given ax plus by equals c, which should look familiar. That's the standard form of just using lowercase a, b, and c. And we're solving for x. That's what this tells us to do. We're solving for this desired letter. So that means I need to get x by itself. Well, I could divide everything by a since it's a times x, but that's not what we usually do first. We like to move this other term to the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 5by on both sides. So I end up having ax equals c minus by. Well, since I'm solving for x, I need to get rid of the a that's in front of it that's being multiplied. Well, what's the inverse operation of multiply? Well, it's divide. So we could write our answer as c minus by all over a. Or if you want to, you can split it up as c over a minus by over a. You choose whichever method or whichever solution you want to write it as. I would probably stop here since that's kind of just straightforward from there to there. This would maybe cause mistakes. All right, what about this next equation? This next equation is actually the formula for the sum of the interior angles of a polygon, where n is the number of sides. So in this problem here, we're going to take this equation and solve it for n. So you could distribute the 180 if you wanted to, or since this whole parenthesis is being multiplied by the 180, I'm going to divide both sides by 180. So we end up getting s over 180 equals n minus 2. And then since we're solving for n, I could add 2 to both sides and end up having n equals s over 180 plus 2. Well, again, there is another way you could have solved this. You could have distributed the 180 in and have kind of a basic algebra problem. We would add 360 to both sides. I'll show that work. Get s plus 360 equals 180n, and then divide both sides by 180. So we would end up getting n equals s plus 360 all over 180. Are these two the both same answers? Yes, they are. They are exactly the same answer. The only thing that difference is between these two is that this is one fraction. This has this 2 out here out of the fraction, which I could have made as 360 over 180 to get a common denominator and make it one fraction. So choose one or the other. It doesn't matter which one of these methods you use. Sometimes, this makes more sense to people. Other people can understand like, oh, I can divide out that 180 first. All right. What about this next one? I have a y stuck in this numerator here. So how do I get it out? I can't just subtract 4 over. So what I need to do is what I'm going to do just to make sure I show all my work is I'm going to rewrite this problem hopefully correctly, where it's y plus 4. And I could set this up as a proportion, or since I'm dividing by this x minus 2, I want to get rid of it, so I'm going to multiply by x minus 2. That means I'm going to multiply the other side by x minus 2 as well. So I could distribute the m if I wanted to, and we usually like to see things in front of parentheses, which again, it doesn't change anything, and we're left with y plus 4 on this side. Well, if I'm solving for y, I'm going to subtract the 4 over, because that's what we do with algebra steps, and we end up getting that y equals m times x minus 2 minus 4. If you wanted to, you could distribute the m, and either one of these two answers would be correct. So this is just taking an extra step, which again, which one's more simpler? It's up to you to choose. All right, let's look at this next problem here. Sometimes there's going to be a lot more challenging problems that you're going to do. Notice that there are different sizes of f's. So we have capital and lowercase f's. In science, those mean two different things. So understand, the difference between them. I think lowercase is usually like friction, while capital F is usually like force, but that's for science to help you with. So what I'm going to do here is kind of what I did for number 3, but I'm going to have to do a little bit of different work. So I'm going to rewrite this just to make sure that I show everybody what I'm doing. So I wrote it down correctly this time. So I'm looking for this lowercase d. Well, the only way that I can get us to solve that is I need to get rid of this fraction. So I'm going to multiply both sides by that denominator. Now, to save me work, I'm going to end up needing to distribute this f. So I'm going to distribute that f into this parenthesis. So capital F times lowercase f, capital F times g, minus capital F times d equals fg, lowercase fg. So then what I'm going to need to do is, just like what I've been doing, is to get the letter d by itself. So I'm going to get rid of everything that being added or subtracted to it. So I'm going to do that to both sides. And I end up getting left with negative capital FD equals lowercase fg minus all of this stuff. And then I'm going to divide both sides by the negative f, since that's what's being multiplied to our letter d. So when we're doing equations, we don't ever want to have a denominator to be negative. So I'm going to divide everything by -1 and kind of change the order to make it look a little nicer. So we end up getting this negative capital F to be positive, this negative capital FG to be positive, and then this lowercase fg ends up being negative, and I'm going to divide that by the capital F. So again, with literal equations, what we're doing is trying to test your understanding of algebra steps. Can you figure out what can you multiply, divide, add, subtract, inverse operate, all that stuff in order to solve for a certain letter? There might be times when you have multiple letters and you have to factor it. So just make sure that you're practicing the assignment and asking any questions that you just, don't have the full knowledge of how to do them. But just, always ask for help. So see you next class.